Hey there, and welcome to the third edition of the Small Business News. And today we have a couple interesting little stories, and I think I can expand on what they say a little bit for you. Going to start off with a piece by Search Engine Land, or no, StreetFight.com, StreetFightMag.com, and it is watch out Yelp and Foursquare. Facebook starts flexing its local muscles again. And Facebook has entered the local directory arena in at least the mobile world. And they did that as early as 2012. There's a story here from 2012 that talks a little bit about what they're doing. December 17th, 2012, Facebook updated their mobile app by allowing nearby searches for businesses, and only those businesses, large or small, that have a Facebook page will be listed. Accordingly, you can imagine this represents a powerful new incentive to create a Facebook page. Okay, so it's one of the most used social networks in the world, if not the most used social network in the world, with Twitter being the main competitor, and they have brought local search into it. Now, whether that affects the larger world of the web remains to be seen. I don't think that it really does. However, if you're a small business and you depend on social networking in general and Facebook in particular, you should probably be interested in this. And in order to take advantage of it, it's fairly simple. Just update your page to include all of your basic information, including your address, store hours, phone number, and details about your business in your About section. Very important, obviously. Update your category or categories to make sure that you appear when people are looking for your specific type of business in a specific area. And encourage your consumers to like, check into, rate, and recommend your place, because obviously the order you appear in is going to be somewhat determined by your popularity. So that was 2012, and now today's story says that they're getting a little deeper into it. During a presentation at Internet Week in New York on Thursday, Justin Moore, an engineering manager at Facebook, offered a full-throated pitch for the company's local data initiative. And Moore was a former Foursquare engineer who joined Facebook in early 2012 and says his team has been really working hard on this. So what they're doing is trying to amp it up a little bit and make it more of a valuable local search resource. So that's something you want to probably be aware of as a small business, because it's definitely something you can take advantage of. The next story kind of dovetails into that, because this one's from Search Engine Watch, and it's about why small business should care about native advertising. And a lot of people will be going, oh, what is native advertising? And if you don't know by now, it's essentially advertising that looks like it's not advertising. The idea is that the more you make advertising appear like content that might actually be interesting to read or watch, the more likely people are to interact with it and be drawn to your website. And the value of that remains to be seen in the long term, because in a sense it seems kind of deceptive, because eventually it's an ad. You get drawn in and you interact and you realize, oh, it was just an ad. How much worth did this really have? And then the challenge there, I suppose, is for advertisers to really make native advertising have more of a value, in the sense of imparting something outside just making you aware of a product or service or a company. But native advertising has had amazing growth, and that's not necessarily because people really want to see it, although an overwhelming majority of consumers say that sponsored content doesn't hinder their experience on a website. Okay, maybe not, but we'll take a little look at that and see. And that's up to you. And content marketers are paying attention to the trend. 81% of content marketers plan on using native ads, and publishers with native ad support are growing, and 70% of consumers look for content to learn about products during their purchase process. And right there is going back to the point I made earlier, that if you're going to use native advertising, you have to really put some value into it so that consumers can gain something out of the experience. Um, Okay, and then SEO, social, and native advertising are a natural fit. SEO in 2014 has been focused heavily on content marketing as Google has pushed the community to stop explicit link building. As small businesses create stronger content, they will also naturally start to think about how to more effectively grow their audiences. Now, this is something I do every day, and I upgrade websites for businesses to make them more search engine friendly, and at the same time, I help them to develop content strategies which involve creating and publishing new content and distributing it to as many locations as they reasonably can, in quality destinations where it's not going to hurt your site by having that destination become a backlink, and it's going to reach as many people as possible. There's a lot of different ways to do that. So okay, there is some benefit there, and check out that story if you would like. But the people using native advertising are some of the bigger players. I know the New York Times has said they are going to use it, but they want it clearly labeled. And I was looking at the New York Times site today, and honestly, I couldn't find anything that came off as really being native advertising. These are obviously ads. This is obviously an ad. Obviously another ad, and obviously an ad. And you come on down the site, obviously another ad. Come on down the site. Okay, just more New York Times stories. No real ads here, but you get down here and yeah, okay, no obvious native ads there. So what if we look at a specific story? Again, obvious ad and tiny obvious ad. AdWords ad. You can tell by this little thing here, it's AdWords. And you come down here, and I just want to make another point, which is sort of related, but as a small business, this is an AdWords advertisement right here. As a small business, if you would like to be seen in publications like the New York Times, AdWords makes that possible because the New York Times is a destination that is part of the Google Display Network. And it's not particularly cheap. However, you have to balance, what you gain out of it as far as having your business featured in the New York Times online as to the cost. So I just want to make you aware of that as one possibility. If you have a business or a product that you think could benefit from being in the New York Times or a similar really big name publication, we can make that happen via AdWords. And again, this is just a particular blog where it's, again, mostly obvious ads. And I've used the New York Times before for campaigns with authors, films, and music. It's just a matter of getting your ad into the right section, which is not a problem either, with targeting. So if you'd like, some more credibility, perhaps, by being in the New York Times for your independent media project, you put your ad for your book in the New York Times book section, your film in the New York Times movie section, all possible. However, now if you come over to one of the bigger news sites on the web, like the Huffington Post, we can see a lot more examples of native advertising. And the Huffington Post pretty much clearly labels it as what it is. But if you come down here, here's obviously a sponsored story presented by Huggies. It's about babies. Okay, that's obvious. It's a featured, sponsored story. Okay. This is just on the homepage, and then here we have sponsored links again via AdWords, where you have a little image text ad. They're obvious. They're not really native ads, and that's pretty much the way you go through the Huffington Post until you go to a story. And if you go to an actual story like this one, we can see regular ads like that. And if you go, I'm having trouble getting this to move here. If you go down the site, down the story to the bottom, here, these are native ads from Taboola. Interesting story, interesting image, and they want you, and they're essentially advertisements, but they're not called advertisements. It's just stuff you may like. They're not clearly labeled as advertisements. unlike these, which are ads or called sponsored links, but they're more obviously ads. These are less obviously ads. And part of what I don't like about them is that very often there isn't really any value to them. And the whole purpose of them is just to build views and likes on the site that they direct you to. And this is especially true if we go to Facebook, where, we're all used to this. But there's a lot of different ways that advertisers do it on Facebook because they have a lot more flexibility. Obviously, everything on this side of the timeline is all definitely ads. And they're kind of targeted to things you have looked at or seen on the web. And, it's a remarketing sort of deal. Netflix, motorcycle batteries, bicycles, things I've looked at. And then you go down your timeline and you see another form of ads, which are more akin to native ads. And they just say sponsored. So they'll have a nice picture, a story, and they want you to go there, sign up, like page, and it's obviously an ad. And pretty much every other story down here is an ad of one form or another. And these are a different kind of ad. These are the ads that try to be viral and get you to share them. And all they're really aimed at doing is getting you to come to that site and build up the traffic on the site and the likes and shares so that the site does better. And on the site, they have other advertising, which is where they make their money. The more traffic they bring to their site, the more money they make. So, there's a question there as to the actual value of the content as opposed to the purpose of just getting you to their site. And that's a lot of the way that Facebook does native advertising. So, is it something for you? Well, it can be. It's attractive. It gets a lot of viewers. But the question is, can you provide the kind of quality experience once you get to the person to where you want them to be? And that's what you have to keep in mind. So that is today's Small Business News. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you probably tomorrow.